Okay. Sponsorships. A Year of Learning, Dr. Paul Koningsberg, in memory of his brother, Dr. Sam Koningsberg, Shimon Reuven ben Levish, and Ed Goldberg's cousin, Nisan Hara, Nisan ben Fardosa. Paul and Bob Bromberg, in memory of their dear friend, Julian Smith, Yehuda ben Yisrael. Malka Mann, in memory of her family murdered in the Holocaust. Harav Tzvi Hirsch ben Shlomo Yaakov, Sarah bat Ephraim, Yisrael David ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Ephraim ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Adia bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Miriam bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Pesel bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shalom ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shlomo Yaakov ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shmuel ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch. Many friends of Dr. Marvin Lush. Moshe Shalom ben Yitzchak Halevi. Friends of Toby Peres, Sarah Tova bat Yisrael Dov. Friends of Malka Levi, Malka bat Yosef. Friends of Avi Gitler, Avram Meir ben Shimon. Cheryl Schur, her children and grandchildren, in memory of her uncle, founding member of BRS, Dr. Israel Brook, Israel ben Arav Akiva, Marcia Federbush and family, in memory of her husband, Dr. Uriel Paul Federbush, Uriel ben Harav Shimon. A Month of Learning by Charlie Gelfenstein, in memory of his mother, Dacia Gittelbas Meir Halevi, and his father, Meir ben Yaakov. Also Megillah and Harold Saltzman, in memory of her mother, Eti bat Yitzchak Elchanan, Chaim and Phyllis Reese, in memory of his father, Mordechai ben Yom Tov Lipa. A Week of Learning by the Friends of Pauline and Gerald Feldman, in memory of their friend Gerald Feldman, excuse me, Tzvi Hirsch ben Menachem Mendel. Today is the 16th, right? And that is it for today. Okay. May Hashem have an aliyah, krank rafia, velti yeshir Hashem ataliyah, l'chol b'nei Israel, good geben shtiyah. Okay, I don't see Marvin on this morning yet, or Mendy. I'm a little surprised, but Marvin usually gets on also early. Okay. All right. We covered up to the little bit of the top of Tzadi Tet yesterday, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right, so I just want us just to help myself review a little bit and get back into the Gemara, right? And we'll seeing that how is it possible for a person in one domain to move things in another domain? Okay, and we raised the point that I didn't mean the pun there either. Okay, that to lift and then put down, right, were the two actual acts required, okay, from one domain to another to be chayav.
What if you roll it?
If you roll it, you slide it, exactly. That would be an example.
You don't lifting and you're not putting down. Yeah.
Oh, you roll it? Would you really be lifting it?
Yeah, you're not lifting it up and you're not, well, putting it down. Right.
Right.
It's always on the ground.
Right. Well, that would be like sliding it as well as rolling it. Right. So if there's the two acts aren't there, particularly if you keep it within Dalet Amos of the same domain. Right?
Right.
Okay. And then we got into this other stuff about spitting and urinating from one domain to another. Okay, all right. So that was in essence, the Mishnah, right? And we got over to the point, okay, that we said in this case, right, that there is Rava Achinina bar Shlomaya, okay, taught it differently. He taught it like Rabbi Meir, not like the rabbis, right? And that's where we got to the top of Tzadi Tet, okay, where the Gemara was telling us that Rav Chinina thought that both the first part and the later part, in other words, were by Rabbi Meir, and the Gemara stopped where we stopped yesterday. Okay, that was not the case. That says the Gemara, Sefer Rabbi Meir v'Reisha Rabbanan. Okay, that's where we left off yesterday. Okay, so it's the Tzadi Tet on the second line. Okay, Ubilvad shelo yotzi chutz. Right. So what does that mean? Doesn't take it out. Okay, doesn't move it from the original location. Okay, right. We just said, the two of us, that you could slide it or roll it. That's still moving it from the original location, but not from that domain. It would apply. Ha-hotzi. So that's what the Gemara seems to suggest. Therefore, if he does move it from that domain, chayav chatat, he would be obligated then to bring a chatas. Lema Messiah Leila Rabba. This then seems to support this Mishnah would seem to support the view of Rava. The Amar Rava, says Rava, Hama'avir chayfetz mitchilat arba lesof arba. Okay, one who, let's say, moves an object from a 4 amma point, from one point in 4 amma to the end of the 4 amma, right? The aviru derech alav, but he did so by moving it over his head. Okay, so in other words, the airspace above his head is going to be considered either a patur or a karmelit. Okay? Therefore, if that's the case, one might think it's not a problem. However, Rava holds, right, chayav, that he would be obligated in that situation.
Florida Power and Light, because the water is connected to the water main, which is part of Florida Power and Light. The electrical, I'm repeating.
You know.
All right, should I continue or you need to?
Hang on half a second. I'm right there.
Okay.
Oh, God. What a pain in the neck. All right. Yeah, we're good.
Yeah. Okay. So the Gemara now says, okay, so we're thinking that this supports this view of Rava, okay? And the Gemara is now going to ask, Mikatani imhotzi chayav chatat. Who is it that explicitly teaches this, right? That if he, in doing so, by changing, right, more than Dalet Amos, okay, to another domain, that he's chayav. Dilma im hotzi patur aval asur. Okay, maybe, how do we know for sure that in that situation, is Mindy, okay, how do we know for sure in that situation that the person is going to be chayav chatat? Okay, maybe we're not demanding that as the punishment, but we're simply going to say, in that situation, since he carried it through the airspace, okay, and he was going from, let's say, one domain to the airspace, which we said is either a makom patur or a karmelit, and then going to the new domain in that situation. Maybe we're going to say he's patur aval asur, okay? That he's not responsible, he's not chai of the chatas, but it's still forbidden for him, okay? We're on Sadi Tet about 6-7 lines down, okay? Right? So we're challenging whether this Mishnah does support this view of Rabbah or not. So Gemara now going to continue. Ika da Amri, okay, and there are those, okay, who say that the discussion is as follows. Ha hotzi, that if someone moves this object clearly more than Dalit Amos from one domain to another, in this manner, by lifting it up over his head, okay, and carrying it along, and then putting it down, because we've got this intermediate domain, I'm going to call it, over the head, okay, therefore it's not the same, right, as the normal change of one domain to another, okay, and therefore maybe in that case, patur aval asur, that he's exempt from bringing a chatas, but it's still forbidden. So the Gemara says in this second lashon, the Ikadamri, lema tahave tiyufte to Rava. Should we say that this is going to be a proof text against Rava? The Amar Rava, because Rava says, Hama'avir mitchilat arba lasof arba, one who moves an object from the beginning of Dalit Amos, passed through Dalit Amos, v'haviro derech alav, and carries it via airspace, chayav. Okay, that's what he holds, that he would be chayav. And then therefore this would be a proof text against that view. So the Gemara says and challenges, Mikatani hotzi patur aval asur. Okay, who is it that would teach that such a transference would be exempt and not, but forbidden still? Dilma, perhaps, im hotzi chayav chatat. Perhaps because he nevertheless changed the domain of the object from one domain to another, he's nevertheless going to be chayav chatat. So we have no clear result on that piece. No final statement. Okay. Going on now to the next piece from the Mishnah. Lo ya'amod adam b'reshut yachid v'chulei. Okay. That a person may not stand in the private domain and urinate into another domain or spit into another domain. So Gemara now continues. Amar Rav Yosef, says Rav Yosef, Ishtim v'rak. Okay, if he urinated or spit, chayav chatat. Okay, he should be obligated to bring a chatas offering, right? Understanding that that's a isur d'oraita. V'ha ba'inan akira v'hanacha me'al gabe makom arba v'leka. But the Gemara challenges Rav Yosef and saying, but don't we need, as a definition of transfer from one domain to another, akira, actually lifting up, v'hanacha, actually putting down, okay? And it has to be me'al gabe makom arba, more than a distance of 4 tfachim, right? In an area that is 4 tfachim, right? Veleka. And in that situation, okay, of urinating or spitting, he said that's not the case. So the Gemara answers here, machshavato mashve le makom, that it's the person's intent, okay, that renders it a place of significance. Okay, so therefore, the fact that he specifically designated by his act that he wants it to go to another domain, okay, that seems to be the case. Okay? The ilo tema hachi, because if you don't say that, ha, here in this case, the amar Rava, as Rava said, zarak v'nach b'fi hakeleb, if someone throws something and it rests in the mouth of a dog, o b'fi hakivshan, or he throws something and it lands in the oven, chayiv chatat, okay, he is obligated to bring a chatas. Vaha ba'inan hanacha al gav makom arba veleka. But here we might have challenged that idea that don't we need again at least a resting place, okay, of more than Dalit Amos, and you don't have it. Ela machshavato mashve le makom. But rather we say that here his intent, okay, renders it a significant place. Hachanami, here too, in our case, okay, of the Mishnah, what do we have? Okay, in our case of this example, machashava mashveva makom, that it's his intent that renders it a significant place. Okay, by Rava, okay, so Rava now raises the following question or dilemma. Hu bereshut hayachid, upi ama bereshus harabim, mahu. Okay, this is a little far-fetched, it was in my mind, okay? Namely, he's standing in the private domain, but the end of his member, okay, his body part is in the public domain. What's the situation? Okay, Batar Akira Azlinan? Okay, do we say that in this case we go based on the uprooting the source, okay? In other words, since his body is in the Rishus Yachid, right? That's what we go. O Batar Yitzia Azlinan. Or do we say that it's after where the emission, okay, where it comes out, that's the issue. Teku. Okay, we have no answer there. Okay, all right. L'chein lo yirok, and likewise one shouldn't spit. We're about halfway down the Amud. Okay. Rabbi Yehuda Omer v'chule, and Rabbi Yehuda, okay, gives a further statement about the fact that if he's carrying any spittle or phlegm in his mouth, okay, afal gav delo hefichba, okay, so the question is, even though, okay, he doesn't move it around in his mouth at all, the spittle, vahatnan, but isn't it taught elsewhere? Haya ochel devela biyadayim mesu avot. What happens in a situation where he was eating a dried fig with unwashed hands? Vehechnis yado letoch piv litol tzror. And he put his hand inside his mouth in order to remove tzror is a pebble. I'm not sure why there would be a pebble in a dried fig, but maybe it's more like a small stone in the fig or a pit in the fig, right? Okay. Rabbi Meir Matame. Rabbi Meir says that he renders the food stuff then Tame. Rabbi Yossi Matahir. And Rabbi Yossi says the food stuff is still considered tahor. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Hechfech ba Tame. Rabbi Yehuda is saying that if his, again, spittle was moved around, it's tameh, lo hafech ba tahor. Okay? That if he didn't swirl his saliva around, he's tahor. Now, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, says Rabbi Yochanan, muchlefet hashita, reverse the order. Okay? Reverse the opinions. Reish Lakish Amar le'olam lo tachlif. Says Reish Lakish, no, don't reverse the opinions. Don't have to. Why? V'hacha b'mai yaskinan. Why? What are we dealing with? B'kicho, with his phlegm. Okay? V'hatanya. And isn't it taught elsewhere in a Braita? Rabbi Yehuda Omer, kicho v'nitlash. Namely, that if his phlegm, okay, becomes gathered, collected, okay? That's what we're talking about. My love, rok v'nitlash. So isn't this also applied to any spittle and it becomes collected? Lo, says the Gemara, kicho v'nitlash. No, it says it deals with his phlegm and it becomes collected. V'hatanya, but here it's taught again in the Braita. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, kicho shenitlash, his phlegm that's become collected. V'chein roko shenitlash, and likewise any spittle that's become collected. Lo yehelech arba amot ad she'arok, that he should not walk 4 amos before getting rid of it. Okay? Ela mechavarta kedeshaninan meikara. But rather, it's clear that this is the way we taught it originally. Okay. Now, Amar Reish Lakish, kiach b'fnei rabo chayav mita. If one has phlegm in his mouth and he spits it out in front of his teacher, he is deserving of death. Shnei Amar, kol misanai ahavu movet. Okay? Namely, the text saying that all those who sort of hate me, okay, deserve death. Okay? And the drasha here is, Shnei Amar, right? Al tikra lemisanai. Don't read it as those who hate me, okay? Ela lemashni'i, okay? Mishanei, write it as those, okay? Lemasni'ai, those who cause others to hate me. Baha menas anis, says the Gemara, but maybe it's an act of accident. Okay, maybe, right? He was forced to do it. Okay, he didn't intend to spit it out in front of his teacher. Kiach v'rak ka'amrinan. Okay, what we're talking about here is one who specifically brings up the phlegm or the spittle. That's what we're talking about. And then spits it out in front of the teacher. Okay, new Mishnah. Matnitin. Lo ya'amod adam b'reshut yachid v'yishteh b'reshut rabbi. A person should not stand in the private domain and drink, okay, than in the public domain. B'reshut rabim v'yishteh b'reshut yachid, or stand in the public domain and drink in the private domain. Ela im kain hechnis rosho v'rubo l'makom shahu shateh. Except in a situation where the majority of his head and body are in the area, I'm going to say for the moment, the domain where he is drinking, v'chein begat. And likewise, we're talking about in the wine press. Okay? And okay, we're going to see furthermore on this. Gemara, Reisha, Okay? In other words, the previous Mishnah here, not the beginning of this Mishnah, but the previous Mishnah, and this Mishnah were together actually one single text. So the earlier part of the Mishnah, Rabbanan, seems to be according to the rabbis. The Seifa, in other words, this Mishnah, this latter part of this, Rabbi Meir, seems to be according to the view of Rabbi Meir. Amar Rav Yosef, says Rav Yosef, b'chafitzin shetzrichin lo v'divrei hakol. Okay, that Rav Yosef is saying, okay, that we're talking about the fact that he's dealing with certain needs, and therefore it would be according to everybody's opinion. Okay, Ibayalahu. So now they raise a dilemma and they ask the following question: Carmelit Mahi. Okay, what happens if the person is standing in a Carmelit and he wants to drink from the Rishus Yachid or the Rishus Harabim? Okay, what happens then? Amar Abaye, he. Abaye says it's the same thing. Okay. Amar Rava, says Rava, he gufa gzera. Okay, says Rava, he disagrees. The law of the Carmelit, he said, is a rabbinic decree. Va'ana nikum v'nigzor gzera l'gzera. And shall we make a decree already on another rabbinic decree? Amar Abaye. Abaye tries to respond. Mina aminala. On what basis do I answer you that it should be the same thing? Okay, the same ruling. Midikatani. Why? Because it teaches v'chein bagat. Okay, namely that it's similar to situation in the wine press. Okay, right? Because the gat is considered a Carmelit, and therefore, if that's the case, and we say it's forbidden from the Carmelit to another domain, that's why he derives the parallel. The Rav Amar, says Rava, le'inyan maaser. No, when it talks about the status of the gat, of the wine press as a Carmelit, that doesn't have to do with the issue of its status in terms of domains on Shabbat. It has to do with the issue instead of tithing. That's what it has to do with. V'chein amar Rav Sheshet. And likewise, says Rav Sheshet, v'chein begat le'inyan maaser. Okay, and we've referred to the case of the wine press also regarding tithing. Ditznan, as it was taught, namely the following: Shotin al Hagat, that if someone takes let's call it the grape juice for the moment, that's there in the wine press, okay, and he drinks that, okay, it's considered normally a incomplete product, a temporary drink, and therefore not completed, and therefore he doesn't have to tithe it. So what happens though if he adds some other liquid to it? Does that complete the process and require tithing or not? So the Gemara, he continues, Bein bechamin, bein betzonim, upator divrei Rabbi Meir. Whether he adds hot water or cold water to the grape juice, let's say, he's exempt. That's the view of Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Eliezer bar Yitzadok mechayev. But Rabbi Eliezer bar Tzadok says he becomes over on not doing tithing. V'chachamim omrim, but the sages say, al hachamin chayev, that if he added hot water to the grape juice, and drinks it without tithing, he is chayev. Okay, Va'al hatzonen patur. But if he added cold water to the grape juice, okay, he would be patur, exempt from the issue of bringing being over on tithing. Why? Mipnei shemachzir et hamiyutar. Why? Because he can take whatever grape juice that was left over and pour it back into the large vat for the grapes and grape juice, and it doesn't, it's not have a negative impact, right? Okay, we got now to another Mishnah, right? This Mishnah, okay, again, I'm going to make the parallel, the continuation. Since this last Mishnah dealt with drinking, okay, and the status of where one is with drinking, so this Mishnah now follows with a similar kind of discussion, okay? And to understand this Mishnah a little bit better, okay, I want us to look at briefly the picture on the bottom of 99b1, opposite note 8. Assuming that you're using Art Scroll. Okay? Okay. Notice there are really two pictures there. Okay. One that has, let's say, I'm going to call the first one a gutter that runs along the side. Okay. All right. But it could be more than that. It could be an indent in the wall. Okay. The other, okay, and again, my pictures are black and white, not colored, okay, where you have a runoff from the roof, but there is a tzinor, there is a kind of a, let's call it a pole, okay, rather than a gutter, okay, that brings the runoff water down to the ground, okay? Right? So that's what we're talking about. Our Mishnah. Matnitin. Koleit Adam men hamezechila. Okay, a person may gather from the gutter. Okay, that's the first picture. It's sometimes an indentation in the actual wall of the house. Okay, lamata me asarat tfachim. So long as it's below 10 tfachim. Umin hatzinur. Okay, and in terms of the pipe, okay, that's the second picture, the lower one, okay, mikol makom shoteh, and from that, in any case, he can drink, right? So the question is, the Gemara is going to raise this issue, collate, to collect this water, okay, right? Is that what we're talking about? Okay, and aval mitzare flow, okay? In other words, catching the water, okay, yes, that's acceptable, but from the idea of, let's say, more like gathering the water, okay, no, ma'itama, okay? So in other words, collecting the water may seem acceptable, but pressing one's mouth, okay, to the pipe itself, or putting one's hand, let's say, underneath the pipe, okay, the spout of the pipe, and drinking from that, that would seem to be not acceptable. Ma'itama, what's the reasoning? Asks the Gemara. Amar Rav Nachman. Okay, says Rav Nachman, Hacha b'mezechila pachot mishlosha samuch legagaskin. Here he says we're dealing with this gutter that is less than 3 tfachim from the roof. That's what we're dealing about. V'kol pachot mishlosha samuch legag kegag dami. That if it's less than 3 amos from the roof, it's like it's from the roof. Okay? The wood, remember. Tanya nami hachi, and we have a braita that teaches as well. Omeid adam bereshuta yachid, someone stands in private domain, umagbia yado lamala me'asarat tfachim, and he raises his hand above 10 tfachim, the fachot mishlosha samuch legag, okay, to that it's less than 3 tfachim from the roof, right? V'kolate, okay, and he then collects the water. Ubilvad shalo yitzaref, so long then as he doesn't press his mouth or hand to it. Tanya idach, and now we have another braita, okay, that also teaches lo ya'amod adam b'reshut hayachid, a person should not stand in the private domain, v'yagbia yado lamala me'asarat tfachim, and raise his hand above 10 tfachim, lefachot mishlosha samuch legag, but less than 3, okay, tfachim close to the roof, v'yitzaref, okay, and press, okay, his mouth or his hand to it. Aval kolate hu v'shoter, but he can collect it, okay, and then drink. So the Gemara says, so stops there and goes on to the next part of that Mishnah. We said in the Mishnah, min hatzinor mikom makom shoteh, that from the pipe, okay, in any event, he can drink. Tana, okay, and we have a teaching that says, im yesh betzinor arba al arba, okay, if the size of the pipe is 4 by 4 tfachim, right? Okay. Asur mipnei shehu kimotzei mireshut l'reshut. Then it's forbidden, because then it's like he's carrying from one domain to another. Okay. Another Mishnah. Okay. Also, in this case, dealing with accessibility to water. Okay. Again, we don't have a handy picture per se, but I want you to think of the following. Think of the fact that you have the house in the courtyard, okay? There's a window of the house that overlooks the public domain, okay? And in the public domain, right next to the house, is a cistern, and there's a stone wall around the cistern. Okay? Got that image? Okay. So now we go into the Mishnah. Bor bereshut rabim. We have this cistern in the public domain. V'chuliato gavoa asrat tfachim. And the embankment, or the stone wall that's around the cistern, is 10 tfachim high. Okay? Chalon she'al gabav, and we have a window overlooking, right, that cistern, right? Memaleim himenu b'Shabbat. One can then use a pail, lower it from the window, and fill that pail with water on Shabbos. Okay? Ashpa bereshut rabim. Let's assume that now it's a different situation. We've got a garbage pile there in the public domain, and the height of the garbage pile, gavoa asrat tfachim, is 10 tfachim high. Chalon she'al gabav, and we have a window then that, so to speak, overlooks the garbage pile. shofchin letocha mayim b'Shabbat. Then it's permissible to pour wastewater out onto this garbage pile on Shabbat. Gemara b'mayaskina. What are we talking about here? Ilema bismucha. If we're talking about the fact that the cistern or the garbage pile is close by, lama li chulia asara. Why do I need to have to worry about the embankment or the stone wall around the cistern being 10 tfachim high? Okay. In any case, okay, that's a Rishus Harabim. I'm sorry, it's in the Rishus Harabim, but it's considered a Rishus Yachid. So the water I'm bringing is from one Rishus Yachid up into the house is another Rishus Yachid. Amar Rav Huna, says Rav Huna, Hacha b'mayi askinan. What are we dealing with? B'mufleget min hakotel. Now we're dealing with something where the cistern is separated from the wall, of that from the wall of the courtyard in which the house is located. Arba'ah, and it's the separation between the cistern and the wall is 4, right? Amos. Okay. V'ta'ama de'ika chulya asara. And the reason there is because we said that the embankment or the wall, a stone wall around the cistern is 10 tfachim. Ha leka chulya asara. But if the embankment or the wall around the cistern is not 10, kamatatel mi reshut hayachid the reshut hayachid derech reshut harabim. Then we have a situation that the person is carrying from one private domain into another private domain through the means of a public domain. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, afilu tema besmucha. And Rabbi Yochanan says, even if it's close by, the cistern near the wall, near the house. Ha kamashmala, what it comes to tell us, debor v'chuliyato mitztarfim la'asara, namely that the cistern and its embankment or its stone wall around it can together be considered a height or a depth of 10, and therefore be considered a Rishus Yachid. Okay, now we go on. What about this other part of the Mishnah? Ashpa, Rishus Harabim v'chulei. We said the garbage pile, was 10 tfachim high, right? V'lo chayshinan shema tinatel ha'ashpa. Don't we suspect that it's possible that someone will remove the garbage pile? Vaha Ravin bar Rav Ada, Amar Rabbi Yitzchak. As here, what about Ravin bar Rav Abda, who said in the name of Rabbi Yitzchak the following: Ma'aseh b'mabui echad shetzido echad kala layam. We have a situation that is, so to speak, shown in as a diagram on 99b3, the picture next to number 16, note 16, where we have a Rishus Harabim, and we have on one side of the alleyway, and the alleyway on one end is the wall of the sea, and the other end is a garbage pile, right? B'mabui echad, shetzido echad kala layam, it finishes up by the sea, v'tzido echad kala la'ashpa, and the other end of the mabui ends in a garbage pile. Uba ma'aseh lifnei Rebbe, and the situation came before Rebbe. He was asked about this, if they could carry into the mabui. V'lo amar lo bo, lo isur v'lo heter. and he was not able to give them an answer whether it was prohibited or permitted. Heter lo amar, a permission he didn't give them, lo amar bo, dechayshin shema tinatel ashba, because we were suspect lest someone remove the garbage pile, via aleh hayam shirton, or we suspect that perhaps the sea will move away and will leave sediment and therefore not form really a valid, so to speak, partition. Isur lo amar bo, prohibition he didn't tell them, the hakaimin mechitzot, because why? Because they're, whether we hold these to be valid partitions, the sea wall, so to speak, the water, edge of the water, and the ashpa, the edge of the refuse pile. Lo kasha. No, this doesn't have to be problematic, explains the Gemara. Why? Ha diyachid, ha derabim. The question is, does that refuse pile, okay, belong to a single individual? And therefore, maybe we do have to be concerned that he's going to move it. Or does it belong to the community? And the community is not necessarily going to move it. Matnitin. Let's go on with this last Mishnah here on the page. Okay. Ilan. This has a large tree. Shahaya mesech al haaretz. And the tree has got branches, okay, that extend a large area, and sort of it forms sort of like a, let's call it almost like a tent or a covering. So the question is, if the branches come close to the ground, okay, within lavud, within 3 tfachim of the ground, okay, then those branches almost act like partitions, and one could carry under the tree. Okay, ilan shaya mesech al haaretz, a tree, right, where its branches form a covering over the ground. Im ein nofo gavoa min haaretz shlosha tfachim, if the branches, okay, don't extend below 3 tfachim, okay, right? If the branches are not 3 tfachim above the ground, so they are within the 3 tfachim, okay, metaltalin tachtav, one can carry underneath it. Sharashav gavoim min haaretz shlosha tfachim, if the roots of the tree grow up above 3 tfachim, lo yeshev aleihem, one cannot sit on them. Okay, we'll see why, right? Gemara says, the Gemara Amar Rav Huna Berei de Rav Yoshua says, Ein metaltalin bo yater mi beit sa'atayim, that one shouldn't carry, okay, more than 2 beit seah. Okay, right? In other words, the same way in a karpaf, we say that only 2 beit seah is a living area, so likewise under the tree. Mai tama, what's the reasoning? It says, Mishum dahave dira shetashmisha la'avir. Why? Because we say that its dwelling purposes is sort of open space. The kol dira shetashmisha la'avir ein metaltalin ba yeter mi beit sa'atayim. And any living space, right, that's open air, we cannot carry more than 2 beit seah. Okay, and that's where we're going to stop today. All right, and we'll pick up. Now, tomorrow is Rosh Chodesh, if I remember. So we may wind up starting a few minutes later again. Okay, everybody take care and have a good day.